So one of the more well-known name brands in the power station and portable power space is Bluetti. And I've been wanting to test a Bluetti power station for a little while now. And so when the folks at Bluetti reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to test their newly released EB3A power station, which is a new power station in their sub 300 watt hour category, I was very excited. And I said, yes, absolutely, I would love to see this thing. So it is at a very good price point and has some very cool features. Let's find out how it stacks up. So this is my first opportunity to finally get a test of Bluetti power station. This particular one is a gray one, and if the box is any indication, it also comes in beige and blue. Let's find out what we get in the box. All right, so we got a warranty card. Looks like a 2-year warranty if I just read that correctly. And we've got the Bluetti user manual. I do like to look at user manuals because for me this is an indication about how serious a company is about their product. So on just a quick glance, I would say the user manual looks pretty good. Let's move on. All right, there's the unit. Actually very small. Looks like we've got some cables here. Let's see what we get. All right, so we have got an MC4 cable to, looks like a DC 7909, so 8mm barrel connector to MC4. So is that really all that's in the box? So I thought that was all that was in the box, and I thought I was missing an AC cable, but as it turns out, underneath this little piece of foam here, there is a camouflaged paper sleeve, the color of the box. And in this paper sleeve is the AC cable I was looking for. So Bluetti did not forget to send the AC cable. They just cleverly hid it in the bottom of the box and I didn't see it. Anyway, back to the video. So again, notice no AC charge brick. So very cool. I like this trend with a lot of these newer power station models coming out with an integrated AC adapter. It looks like there is a 15 watt wireless charging on the top. So there's no sort of indentation here, just kind of a graphical indicator. There is a flip up handle. I like the fact that the handle sits flush. Although I will say my initial impression is that this handle feels a little on the cheap side, to be completely honest. It's kind of hollow molded plastic. Not a big deal. I mean, the plus size is that saves on weight, and this is very lightweight and compact. So I'm pretty impressed with how compact this is. Now the capacity on the EB3A is 268 watt hours. So it's a very low capacity power station, but like the Flash 300 from Bouge RV, this one also has some very cool tricks up its sleeve. Not the least of which is the wireless charging, but it also has an upgraded inverter and charge controller. So just kind of looking at the front of this, looks like you get 3 USB ports. One is I believe a 2-way USB-C 100 watt, so PD 100 watt port. Very good for charging things like MacBook Pros and any sort of modern laptop that'll accept PD charging. And then you've got 2 standard Type A USB ports that look like to be there 15 watts. Looks like you have another input here. This is the 8mm or the DC 7909 input. Hey, before I forget to mention it, Bluetti Power Week actually starts now and runs through August 28th, 2022. So if you're seeing this video in this time frame before August 28th, 2022, you should go to Bluetti's website. The information's all in the description below, and check out some of the deals that they've got going on. So it's not just the EB3A power station, it's all of their other portable power stations and home battery backups and expansions and all that. They've got a bunch of bundles that you might be interested in checking out. So check that out in the description below. So it looks like the display can be activated by pressing any of the little mini power buttons here. And it looks like it has a bicolor display. So nice bright bicolor display. All right, looking around on the rest of the unit, I don't think there's anything else to see. A couple of ventilation grills there on both sides for some ventilation fans or cooling fans. So we're going to need to run this thing through its paces and find out what kind of usable capacity this thing has and what kind of input we can really get out of this. How quickly does it charge? And how much watt draw can it really take? So let's jump into the testing and see how that goes. Run it down to 0% and see what we get. Hey, by the way, if you're finding any of this information useful, I would really appreciate a thumbs up on the video. It takes just a second and it really does help. Back to the review. All right, now that we've got this thing fully depleted, 0% on the screen, let's go ahead and try recharging this and see how long that it takes. We'll check back in a little while and see how it's doing. All right, so it's been about an hour and just under 10 minutes. We're at 99%. You can see the input watts is now ramping down. We were at around 264 watts, and now we're at 65. So just over an hour and 10 minutes, maybe an hour and 12 to hour and 15 minutes from AC to charge from 0 to 100%. So no problem running a 12-volt refrigerator or two off of this power station. All right, now this EB3A says 600 watts on the label. So let's find out what kind of performance we can actually get output-wise from this particular AC inverter. Again, I've got the hairdryer test up there. This is a up to 1500 watt hairdryer, but we'll see if we can put the fan on low and then the fan on high. And we'll see if we can do both of those things. Let's start with low. All right, no problems there. So let's go to high. We were just under 300 watts. Let's try high. And going to high. All right, so you see it momentarily hit 662 watts, but that obviously exceeds 600 watts, and this thing shut down immediately. But there's another mode that's called power lift mode. And the only way to access that is to connect to the unit from the app. And we're going to talk more about the app in just a second, but I really like this app. All right, we are successfully connected. I'm going to go into my settings, set it to powerlifting mode, and here it says it's suitable for powering up to 1200 watts max, but powerlifting will allow you to use heaters and things with a persistent load to go past that 600 watt mark without tripping the units. So let's see if we can go from low to high on the hairdryer test again. And let's see if it shuts off again as soon as we get to high. So low first. And now we go to high. So PowerLift does buy you a little more flexibility in terms of total power output. But under normal circumstances, I think you probably want to not do that, because this is a fairly low capacity battery, and at only 268 watt hours, it's probably not going to power that high draw device for very long. All right, speaking of the app, let's take a closer look at the app. When you first launch the app, you come up to this screen right here. Now I have to actually turn on the device. I can then click connect on the Bluetti app, and you see it picked up my EB3A, the first one there in the list. So go ahead and connect, and now I can see what's going on. And I can turn on the DC port, and you'll see that light just came on. I can turn on the AC inverter, and you can see that light just came on. So that's very cool. If I was actually drawing any power out of these ports, I would see that represented there in the app. It'll also show me if I'm inputting from solar or the grid or wall power, so I can see all the inputs and outputs. So that's pretty cool. Now there's a little a cog or sprocket up in the upper right-hand corner. So let's go in there and have a look. You can see I've currently got that powerlifting button switched over. So I can put it back and turn powerlifting off. And then there's an eco mode switch here. Now with eco mode turned on, you can specify the eco setting. And what the eco setting is, like let's say I wanted to set it to 3 hours there. So after 3 hours, if I haven't drawn more than 1 watt on DC or 10 watts on AC, the unit will power those off and go into sleep setting or standby mode. So you can completely customize that between 1 and 4 hours, or let's say that you have a device that is intermittent at longer than 4-hour intervals and may not kick on, but you don't want the unit to shut down. You still want it to be able to draw power when it needs to. So you could just turn off the eco mode entirely, and now the unit will stay, like right now I have the AC inverter on, even with no load, it will continue to allow the unit to run without shutting off. So that's about all there is to the app, except for this standard working mode on the top. This really is kind of oddly named, but this really pertains to charging. So in standard mode, it'll charge, the fans will come on and go off as they need to, depending on the ambient temperature. I can hit turbo, and you can see here the help shows me that it'll allow me to charge at a much faster rate, so 350 watts. But it's saying to only activate this when you really have to have fast charge, because this does kind of tax the battery lifespan. So be aware of that. I really like this. This is the best app that I have seen for any of the power stations that I've seen that have apps. So kudos to Bluetti. So let's talk about some of the details I think are important to know about this power station. First of all, the price on this, I think right now is $239. I think it's normally priced at $299, and there might be an additional discount available for Bluetti Power Week. So again, check that information in the description below. The Bluetti power stations come with a 24-month warranty, which is very good. Now the DC input max on the EB3A is 200 watts of solar. Now that is comprised of 8 amps, up to 8 amps, and up to 28 volts max. So a 200 watt solar panel would be ideal for this. Now it does have dual channel charging, so you can actually charge this thing through AC and through DC at the same time, which will give you up to 430 watts of input. The battery chemistry on this is a LiFePO4, so it's lithium iron phosphate, and in 2022 that really is the preferred battery chemistry that you want to look for in a portable power station. Not required, but definitely an advantage because you'd get a much higher life cycle count. So the EB3A has a rating of 2,500 plus charge-discharge cycles while still maintaining at least 80% of its original capacity. And that's cool because you know that this thing is going to continue working for 10 plus years with that kind of a cycle count. The DC output on this, in case I forgot to mention it, is regulated. So whether you're using the DC 5521 ports here on the bottom or the car socket, 12 volt car socket, fully regulated for constant voltage even as the unit drops capacity. So it will not damage something like a 12 volt refrigerator. Perfectly safe to use with that. Now let's talk about the pros and cons on the EB3A. Let's start with the pros. First of all, I really appreciate the fact that this has, even in a unit in this small of a capacity range, still has an integrated AC adapter. So there's no AC charge brick. All you need is that AC charge cable, which is extremely common. Same thing you use on any desktop computer. Now another pro for me is the price on this unit. I think the price is extremely reasonable for what you're getting in this power station. If you were to just look at the price and compare it to the number of watt hours capacity, I think it's pretty average in that regard. But that is not the whole story with this unit, because you do get a better inverter, you do get better DC input capacity on this than you would any other normal sort of 300 watt range type power station. So this is an exceptional power station in its class. So that $239 price right now, I think, is still definitely a pro in my book. Now this thing obviously does do pass-through charging from both AC and DC while you're charging it. So that's cool. Not all power stations do that, as I think I've mentioned before on this channel. Another cool thing that I'm not sure that I mentioned prior to now, but this thing does act as a UPS, or an uninterruptible power supply. And I did test that with my computer. So you can plug this thing into the wall, and you can power a desktop computer or any other sort of important appliance that you want to maintain power even if the wall power goes out. And if the wall power does go out, this thing will switch over to battery supply power to your appliance in less than probably around 15 milliseconds or so. What I can tell you is that in my test, it did not shut my computer down. Now on a desktop computer in particular, any kind of little momentary power outage will shut your computer down without warning, and you might lose some data. So having a UPS on that is a very cool feature, and a feature that I really do appreciate and use. And lastly, under the pros column for me, I think the Bluetti app is actually very useful. Being able to configure specifically how the eco mode works so it doesn't leave all your ports energized when you're not drawing power and consuming your battery capacity. So I like being able to configure that or turn that off completely. Now on the cons, the only thing that I really have, and honestly, this is probably an unfair criticism, is the fact that the watt hours is only 268 watt hours. When you're looking at a unit in this class, you know you're getting fewer watt hours capacity. And when you consider the price of this thing, it's pretty consistent with other units in this watt hour capacity range. But when you also consider that you get that upgraded inverter and upgraded charge controller, and you get wireless charging on top of this thing, and full control with the app, I mean, I don't know where else you're going to get this level of features at this kind of a price point. So as long as 268 watt hour capacity meets your needs, that's definitely not a con in this case. So I can highly recommend the Bluetti EB3A. I think it's a fantastic unit in this capacity class. And I don't know that there's a lot better deals going on for something like this from a name like Bluetti. So definitely worth checking out. That's about all I got for you. I hope you found this information useful. If you did, please consider giving me that thumbs up again. I would really appreciate that. And consider subscribing if you're not a subscriber. So I do hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have fun out there. And this little unit actually acts as a UPS, or uninterruptible. If you think about how that compares to the... Now the capacity on this particular power... Now the capacity... And talking about So it's not just the EB3A power station, it's also their